a new live stream. Today I'm going to go through some top insights from Tesla's Q1 2020 earnings call that happened a couple days ago. So first I want to go over kind of today's news. Today was a shocker day today. If you don't know already, Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted this tweet early today in the morning, and he basically said Tesla's stock price is too high in my opinion, right? IMO. And yeah, this basically shocked people left and right. If you look at the stock price today, this was right before Elon Musk tweeted this. The stock price was at about 761, right, at 11:10 a.m. And then when Elon tweeted this was basically 11:11 a.m. Eastern time, or 8:11 a.m. The stock dropped, basically like $50, $50, and then it basically closed the day at about 7:01. So the stock dropped about $70 or $60 because of Elon's tweet, generally speaking. There's a lot of speculation on why Elon tweeted, what he tweeted, and I'll go ahead and after this live stream or toward the end, I'll go ahead and take some questions. Thanks for those guys who are already chiming in the live chat. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear this, okay? Yeah, so I mean, the basic gist of it though is I think Elon Musk is getting criticized for he's trying to push for the opening of the Fremont factory, but he's getting pushback and criticism of people telling him that he wants to do it for his own selfish gain and for profit, right? For Tesla's own stock price. And so he kind of wants to make it clear that I don't care about the stock price. I think it's high anyways, right? And he has a big stock incentive award coming up, which is going to be publicized as this big thing, but he can't even cash it out for another 5 years, even if he gets it. So it's a two-edged sword for Elon. He needs to try to push for the opening of Fremont, but there's a bigger issue at hand that Elon sees. He sees that California, it has some majorly stringent shelter-in-place order, and the Bay Area has this most stringent order of all of the areas in California and probably the country. And he was probably under the impression that he could open up Fremont, right, by May 4th. I mean, that was the gist of the first shelter in order. However, as I shared, like when the first order was released, I said when I was ranting about this order because I said this order can be extended over and over, right? And you think it could be over on May 3rd, but they could just easily extend it. And it's kind of like this blanket shelter in order, which I disagreed at that time. I said we need a smart, comprehensive plan to protect the vulnerable while allowing businesses to reopen through smart measures like masks, temperature checking, increasing of testing, etc. I laid out 10 points in a blog post that I wrote on Medium back on March 23rd, and I released a series of videos around that time as well. Ironically, YouTube kind of punished my channel. It just completely halted, a lot of things on my channel because I was talking about the pandemic and the virus situation. But I think it was worth it. It was an important topic. I needed to get out the word, what I thought was the way forward. And the way forward, I said first, we got to do a shelter in place for the elderly and the vulnerable, right? We got to target, pick our targets, right? We can't just do a blanket thing for more than a few weeks. And I said that, a blanket shelter in order might be okay for a couple of weeks, but we've got to be smarter about it long term, right? We've got to target the ones that really need the help. I say, it needs to be paired with a safe provider protocol for those servicing the elderly and vulnerable, right? We got to provide an infrastructure around that. And then I go on to say that, we have to create a protocol for workplaces, right? And so you got to have masks, you got to do temperature checking upon entry, social distancing, and ample hygiene and sanitation. I go on and say we need a transportation protocol, a health protocol. We need free testing for everyone who wants it. I go on for mass procurement, open source treatment data, patient choice of treatment, and vaccine fast tracking. If you haven't checked out this blog post, I encourage you to do so. I'll put it into the YouTube description. I think this is the path forward. I've been saying it for many months now. We need a better solution than just a blanket, right, shelter-in-place order. We need a way where businesses can get back to work, right, in a safe manner while mitigating the spread of the virus. We need some competency, right, in our government and on local and federal levels. I think that's a big problem. If you look at the situation in South Korea, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, and and even other countries, right? A lot of these countries, they didn't do massive lockdowns actually, but their economy, was able to continue to run, yet they were able to mitigate the virus. Like South Korea just a couple of days ago had 0 new cases of coronavirus domestically. They had a few cases of people traveling from abroad. But this is just amazing, right? Countries are able to do it as long as they are able to show some competency at the government level. The issue, in my opinion, isn't necessarily the virus. The issue is the competency level. Because if you have competency to actually do smart and comprehensive measures, you're going to be able to mitigate the virus. Anyways, check out the blog post and my past videos on this topic. And I wanted to move on. Want to welcome to everyone who's joining in the live stream right now. There's a lot of emotion and comments about Elon's tweet, and so we'll go over. I'll answer some more questions toward the end of this call. All right, so top insights for Tesla's earnings. A couple days ago, I want to dive into this topic because I think a lot of people tend to gloss over earnings and just say, oh, was it a beat or was not a beat, and they don't try to use earnings as an opportunity to really try to understand the core feature and the core essence of the company. I think that's the opportunity for earnings. We get to see new numbers, we get to see new comments, right? And we get to see the progress of what the core initiatives are for Elon. All right, so Q1 earnings, the summary was $6 billion, right? In revenue, 20.6% gross margin. That was a big surprise, right? And it was largely due to regulatory credits, as I shared. You had $1.2 billion in gross profit, $951 million in operating expenses, $215 million in interest expenses, and you're left with a GAAP profit of $16 million, right? This was fantastic. Here's Susan. Hi, that's actually my wife. So I just want to say, hey, thanks for letting me do this live stream while you watch the kids inside. All right. So Elon Musk on profitability. So I'm going to go through what I think are probably the key highlights of the earnings call. These are long earnings call, right? These are over an hour long. And I don't think I think it's good for all shareholders to listen to, but I want to actually kind of dive deeper into some of the comments and look at it from different angles. So Elon Musk on profitability. He says Q1 ended up being a strong quarter. This is the first time we have achieved positive GAAP net income in a seasonal weak first quarter. And I hate to break it to people, but this is incorrect. Q1 2013 was the first quarter Tesla delivered GAAP and non-GAAP positive net income. You can look back into history, you'll see it very clearly. I remember the day actually, and the exact time. It was May 8th, 2013. I was with my wife at Starbucks. We had just put our entire kind of savings, except for some money that we had saved up for a down payment for a house, but we put pretty much all the money we have saved up for a business that we had been running for several years at the time, and we put it into Tesla. And we also did some things where I'll explain there later, but we were very anxious at the time, and I was very confident with Tesla long term, but it was unclear exactly on a quarterly basis. And so when Tesla announced positive GAAP income for Q1 in 2013, May 8th, at that Starbucks, I was reading through the shareholder letter. My wife started to break down and cry because she was so relieved, right? And this is with all this massive propaganda that Tesla was going bankrupt at that time. That's an amazing thing. Here, Christian says, what is GAAP? Yes, it's basically general accepted accounting practices. It's accountant language. Non-GAAP basically, removes stock-based compensation, let's say for your employees and several other things, while GAAP includes all that stuff. So GAAP is a more strict accounting measure, and that's what usually, for example, the S&P 500 inclusion, they're going to go by GAAP income, so that's why it's important. All right, Elon Musk on autopilot. So he says that we released a new software update for traffic lights and stop signs, and all US customers got it last week. And the cars will now automatically stop at each stop sign or traffic light until the driver gets confirmation to proceed. And he says we're only exposing functionality that we feel quite good about right now. And then he says we're collecting data for over 1 million intersections, and soon we'll be able to collect data from over 1 billion intersections per month. Now here's the key thing. He says that they're training the neural net, and so whenever a driver is driving and taking action, they're effectively labeling, right, the intersection and making the neural net better. And he says that this is an advantage that no one else has because we're quite literally orders of magnitude more than everyone else combined. Now, here is an interesting thing. There's some people who think that Tesla is way behind in autonomous driving, but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of like AI and neural nets. And a large part of it is you need good labeled data, right? The neural net needs data to be able to understand and to learn and to build its whole neural network and how to make decisions. And without data, you don't have anything. And that's why Elon, I think, is correct when he says that data is their advantage. And it's not just data, it's actually labeled data, right? Data that actually makes sense. And so for Tesla to be collecting 1 billion, right, intersections per month, and the drivers to actually label it for Tesla is actually quite amazing. And that's why, in my opinion, bar none, Tesla is #1 in the race to autonomous driving. And right now it's Tesla's game to lose. Like, how else are other automakers or other autonomous driving companies going to catch up to the data, right? To the data collection advantage that Tesla has. I think there's definitely going to be a second and third place, but you know, no one is being as aggressive as Tesla is at the moment, and that's to their advantage. All right, Elon Musk says that soon they'll be able to drive through an intersection without a confirmation, as well as to make turns. And we feel extremely confident that it'll be possible to do a drive from your home to your office, and most of the time with no interventions by the end of the year. All right, so what he's saying is that he thinks by the end of 2020, you can actually go from your home to your office, basically drive somewhere locally, right, on local streets without interventions most of the time. Now, this is both bullish and bearish in my opinion. So let me explain this. So most of the time, right, so you know, originally Elon Musk was hoping that the Robotaxi network would be rolled out by the end of this year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. He stated later that it would be hopefully by the end of next year. However, if most of the time, right, you're driving without interventions, that means some of the time you do have to intervene, right? So some of the time you do intervene, and that makes it basically an unusable system for a driverless, right, car, meaning a driver needs to oversee and needs to intervene at times, right? And so what you need is a system where there is no driver intervention, where no interventions are needed at all, right? Any of the time, for you to have a true Robotaxi network without a driver. And so that's some time away. And so that's kind of Elon's comments right now. All right. Elon Musk says on full self-driving that there will be a subscription service, and it will be probably toward the end of the year. We have a person named Green, the Only, on Twitter. He goes through Tesla's software in their car somehow, and he was able to pick this up early on, actually a few weeks ago, saying that there's code for subscription service. So if Tesla wanted to open it up, they could actually let people access full self-driving with just paying monthly. And Elon Musk is saying it's something that people, you know, won't regret doing if they just buy it up front. He thinks it's going to be a better deal because he thinks they're going to be able to increase the price of full self-driving. All right. Here, Husky Dog says, is neural net analogous to learning? The best way I can explain neural nets it's a way where you pattern software where instead of telling the software exactly what to do based upon rule-based, right, programming, we say like, if there's this type of stop sign that looks like an octagon, right, and it's colored red, then you stop. That's a rule-based system. Rather than rule-based system, a neural net system, it patterns. It's a learning system that is patterned around how the brain typically inputs data and makes certain decisions, right? And the best way I can explain it is your brain is inputting various types of data all at the same time. For example, it's inputting color on one angle, it's inputting shapes on another angle, it's inputting textures on another angle, it's inputting like different surrounding objects in another angle, it's inputting just so many different facets, right? And each of these types of angles of inputs, right? The brain takes all of that in and then decides to make a decision whether that's a stop sign or not. And so and our brain doesn't necessarily work off of stringent, strict rules, right? It takes much more data in, and the more we see stop signs, the better we're able to recognize it's a stop sign. So in a similar way, when you set up a neural net, you set up all these different angles or approaches to input data, and then you take all that data and you tell the neural net, this is a stop sign or it's not a stop sign. So you basically need to train the neural net first. You need to say, stop sign, and you go, not a stop sign. Stop sign, not a stop sign. And the neural net starts to learn like what is a stop sign and what is not a stop sign based upon all those different mechanisms inputs and the labeling, right, that you're doing and teaching the neural net. After millions and millions of cases, the neural net now is able to tell what's a stop sign and what's not a stop sign, likely as good as a human or possibly even better, right? And that's the power of kind of this whole machine learning system or artificial intelligence in this respect. And so this is kind of what Tesla has in its advantage, right? This is the core reason why Tesla is so bullish on autonomous driving, because they're like, who else has the data to teach neural nets? You can make the neural net. That's not the big problem, right? It's the input mechanism of of all the stuff you're taking in. But who has all the data to teach that neural net, right? What is a stop sign? What is a left-hand turn? What is like some obscure object somewhere, right? And Tesla's the only only company in the world that has the amount of data, right, to teach its neural nets. And that's why Elon is so bullish on autonomous driving. And it's also the reason why he thinks he could up the price as well, because he thinks, yeah, this is no one else is close to Tesla. All right, I hope that helped you guys out with neural nets. So Zach Kirkhorn of CFO Model Y says, we demonstrated Model Y was profitable, right, and is ahead of schedule. And he says it's hard to understate the significance of demonstrating profitability of this program in this first quarter of production. And so, yeah, he's saying that, yeah, it is actually quite an accomplishment. Usually you have negative gross margins the first, several thousand cars, and then you build up your gross margins. But Tesla showing that they're already having positive gross margins for Model Y, that's very bullish, and it just shows Model Y is going to be a cash cow for Tesla, and it also is great for future cars and future lines. It shows Tesla can really roll out their cars fast and can do it profitably. All right, Tomer Hakohen says, if all the other companies and Apple are so far behind full self-driving with Tesla data, why are they even trying to catch up? Yeah, well, they have to catch up. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right? It's not just autonomous driving and the transport of people. It's a transport of goods, and there's an immense amount of attention and time involved, right, in the car. And that's why Apple and Google and Amazon and all the big companies are going to need to try to get into this space, right? There are a limited number of these trillion-dollar type of market spaces, right? And if you're trying to grow your company, right, and you're already a $1 trillion market cap company, you have to go into the big markets. Yeah, a lot of these car companies or a lot of these tech companies, they want to get into autonomous driving as kind of extending what they have. Like Google wants to extend, right, their ad platform, their reach platform, right? Apple wants to extend iOS and their whole platform, etc. The problem is none of these big players, tech companies right now, want to get into the messy business of making cars, right? Because cars is such a messy business. I mean, we're talking about a low margin hardware business with thousands of parts and thousands of suppliers, and yet you have to have liability for these objects that could break down and cause some safety malfunction 5-10 years down the road, and you're hit with all these lawsuits, right? You're dealing with these thousands and thousands of pounds metal going down the freeway at 70-80 miles per hour, crashing into things. Who wants liability for that, right? Who wants to carry liability for many, many years? No company in their right mind, I think, no tech company really wants to make cars, right? That's the hesitancy, and that's the reason why Apple doesn't want to make a car, why Google doesn't want to make a car, etc. One of these companies might be forced to make it because they're thinking, hey, that's the only way to do it. But yeah, I'd actually be surprised, right? They all want to provide the software, right? They all want to just extend, their core expertise into the car industry rather than getting down and dirty with actually making cars. All right. So moving on, Zach Kirkhorn says that on regulatory credit sales, which are credits that they sell to other makers, that they're actually going to increase over time. So these ZEV credits, the zero emissions vehicle credits and other credits, he says generally they're rising over time. So we had a big increase in the credits that Tesla sold this past quarter. And according to Zach, that's not necessarily just a one-time thing. He expects it actually to be consistent and to actually generally increase over time, meaning there might be quarters where it goes slightly down, but the trend is up. And that's actually good news for Tesla. At 330 billion or something in regulatory credits last quarter, that's like $1.3 billion a year in free money, right? And to say that that's actually going to go up, extremely bullish. Tesla has this great cushion that's helping them. He says most of the credit revenue didn't contribute to cash in Q1 and is reflected in accounts receivable. Yeah, this is kind of like, there's some shorts and bears that really are getting riled up about this. But yeah, it's in the accounts receivable. They should get it. There's some question mark here, though. Is fiat, if a chunk of that credit sales is kind of booked to fiat, and fiat doesn't want to pay, and Europe starts to change their credit things to their credit regulations, right, to be more lax to help out the automakers, it might be difficult for Tesla to get that. But in the bigger picture, this isn't important. It's not a ton of money. It's not like millions or billions and billions of dollars, right, that Tesla's losing out. But I think they can get their money anyways. All right, moving on. Moving on to Shanghai, Zach says that the cost of vehicles is already lower than the cost to produce them in Fremont. And then he says the fixed cost absorption from higher production values will occur through the rest of the year, and they're going to localize their supply chain even more. And so there's actually more opportunity to bring down the costs. And we saw that recently, a couple days ago, or yesterday or so, when Tesla reduced the price of the Model 3 standard range in China to meet the level for incentives. And Tesla, it's just it's surprising everyone, right? The level of efficiency and the level of speed that Shanghai factory is going out for. All right, Tomer says, thanks, Dave. Follow-up question. Do you think Tesla will eventually sell the full self-driving software and hardware to remain number one and block others? Being only on Tesla is pretty limiting. Yeah, see, there's two ways to think about this. One way is you could say, yeah, that's great for Tesla. They could just, sell their, full self-driving package, maybe the camera, the suite package, the software, etc. Try to get it on all the cars and take over, right, that whole autonomous driving field for all vehicles. However, I think there's another angle, and the other angle is full self-driving, I think, is very connected to the hardware, meaning, like, for example, you have all these 8 cameras, right? But it's not just the cameras, it's connected to the whole control modules. It's connected to their computer, right? Their full self-driving computer. It's connected to the whole driving system. All the cars, right, function a little different. So, and especially because it's a life and death issue, meaning if a car crashes or malfunctions, like we're talking about a huge consequence, it makes sense for Tesla to err on the side of caution and to really keep quality control under, right, their control. And so it makes sense for Tesla to say, hey, this is an integrated product, right? It's kind of like, Apple's approach with the iPhone, right? Hey, do the software, do the hardware, do the customer experience, do everything, make it a top-notch experience. I think that actually makes a lot of sense with full self-driving. Like, do everything, do the hardware, do the software, do the whole experience, make it top-notch, make it as safe as you can. If you give it to other people, like, are their cars really going to be as safe? Is it really going to be as integrated? Are they really going to push the updates as they need? There's so many questions, right, that you can't ensure quality for. And so that's where I'm like, hey, forget it, man. Tesla shouldn't sell their hardware, software to anyone. They should just do it themselves. And already, the more cars they sell, they're going to reduce their costs and their price because they're going to take advantage of economies of scale. That will give them greater advantage. And yeah, they won't have a problem scaling. Just build up right? Your production capacity. And that's why I think Battery Day in May, hopefully, will be so important, because Tesla's going to show, I think, the path to 10 or 20 million cars in, let's say, 10 years or 15 years or so. And it's really going to show how they're going to make cars in volume. And I think it's actually going to be an exciting kind of vision casting for Tesla. All right. Elon Musk on Battery Days, he says, there's a lot of exciting news for Battery Day, and he thinks that it'll be one of the most exciting days in Tesla's history. And he says that it'll probably be the third week of May, and depending on what we're allowed to do, it'll either be in California or Texas. Right, so this is a little confusing, because California is where they have their design studio. This is where they have their headquarters in Palo Alto. Is where they have their Fremont factory. It's where everything is, right? But for them to say Texas, right? And it's like, I think Elon is kind of hedging. If they can't do it in California, if there's too many restrictions on the shelter in place where they can't even gather people, then they might just gather in Texas, because Texas is opening up their economy a lot faster. Where they'll do it in Texas, I don't know. Maybe they'll do it at a potential site, right? I think Elon was visiting Austin, Texas or so, and he tweeted that, the Gigafactory might be, coming to Texas. So it could be in Austin. All right, let's go to another question. Tariq, do you think real world full self-driving will be achievable with the current full self-driving suite? Or will it require a couple more iterations of the current hardware, higher resolution cameras, hardware 4.0, etc.? Yeah, I look at it more as like, this is incremental. It's not necessarily binary, in the sense that you're gonna have different levels of safety and different levels of full self-driving. And I think it will be possible with the current suite to do what Elon has said, to go from point A to point B without intervention. The question mark is like, yeah, it could be between 2 to 4 times or 2 to 5 times safer than a human driver, but to get to 10 times safer than a human driver, yeah, they're probably going to have to upgrade their hardware. It's going to go to hardware 4 suite, new cameras, better resolution, etc. There's a lot of things that I'm sure Tesla wants to improve about the current system, and they're going to need to do it if they want to really boost up safety. And so, yeah, it's going to be achievable in the current suite. It's just to get higher and higher degrees of safety, and that's what you need. My personal opinion is just 1 or 2 or 3 times safer than a human driver is not enough, right? We're talking about life and death. There's high expectations for this, and so yeah, Tesla needs to show that they're significantly safer than a human driver. All right, let's go to Zach Kirkhorn on full self-driving deferred revenue. He says that currently in North America they sell full self-driving for $7,000 as an option. They take half of that as revenue, and the other half goes into deferred revenue. And their deferred revenue is growing, and it's a bit over $600 million right now. And then he goes on, and then he says, as we release features with time at the end of every quarter, we look at what features have been released and associated value, and then we can release that from the deferred revenue into financials for the quarter. So they basically take half of the deferred, half of full self-driving, 7,000. They take aside 3,500, and then at the end of every quarter, if they have more features, right, that have been developed for full self-driving, then they'll take money from the deferred revenue and put into the revenue. So he says going forward, once features are released, they can recognize their revenue, and they can reduce the amount of deferral. So they can reduce it from let's say putting aside 50% maybe to 30% or 20%. And he says this is what we think will be one of the most powerful gross margin levers with time as the feature suite is rolled out. And so this is fantastic because, for example, for a $7,000, let's say full self-driving package, if the feature set is complete by the end of the year, then Tesla can not only get that full $7,000 for every new car that they sell. So that's another, let's say, $3,500 in margin, right? That's like 10% margin. It's amazing. Not only that, they can actually pull their past, right, saved deferred revenue for all the other cars that they haven't taken credit, right, for those features. And so they have $600 million that they can take credit for, and that's going to be released probably, hopefully, within the next year. And so you're talking about potential of $150 million per quarter. And so that's significant. That's going to increase their gross margins for their cars. All right, so here we have a question. This was submitted on say.com from RobMarr, Tesla Daily Podcast. He says, Elon has mentioned a 50% compound annual growth rate for Tesla in the past. Is this still in line with Tesla's ambitions for the next 5 to 10 years? This would be 4 million vehicles in 2020 and more than 20 million vehicles in 2030. Is 40% or more a realistic target? All right. Elon goes on and answers the question. He says, well, it's difficult to predict what the macro situation was going to be. I think very few people would have predicted the unexpected roundhouse that COVID came up with. It sort of came out of nowhere. So I think the absence of some massive force majeure event, but quite massive, I think 40% is the likely number. It's possible that 40%, that is 40%. I would be very shocked if it's less than 40%, even with a force majeure short of World War III. All right, so yeah, he's basically saying, hey, 50% is kind of, tough. 40% is probably more likely. And so, yeah, even with 40%, I take it kind of with a grain of salt because I think it's difficult for Elon really to predict year to year, right? I mean, he has a goal over the next maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right, to grow Tesla at 50%, and he has the rollout of gigafactories, right? And he has a schedule to achieve those goals. But I think the gray area becomes years 5 to 10. Like, how can you really predict how fast you're growing? It really depends on demand. It depends on the cost and the price of your product. There's so many factors at hand. So I think, yeah, for the next 5 years, Tesla's goal is 50%, and it might be closer to 40% when reality sinks in. All right, John Olson says, even if other car makers can create a real competitor for Tesla, wouldn't they be forced to buy batteries from Tesla? How could they scale production otherwise? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question because even if they buy batteries from Tesla upcharges their batteries. They need to get profit, and then like these other automakers are left without profit. So I don't even think that that's the best thing. I mean, there are other auto or battery makers, right? You have even Panasonic is willing to deal with other makers. You have Samsung and LG and you have BYD, etc. So there are other battery makers. It's not just the batteries, right? It's not just the powertrains. It's not just the software. It's like the complete package that these other OEMs are missing, and that's what Tesla has. And yeah, it's extremely difficult for these other auto OEMs to compete with Tesla on price when Tesla is increasing their lead, like getting better with price, getting better with features. That's the challenge, I think, for these OEMs. Husky Dog says, if California moves Fremont opening to June, what will that do to the stock price? Yeah, I think at this moment, we have to assume Fremont factory is not opening up next week on May 4th, right? I mean, that's pretty clear in my opinion. And I think we have to assume that, yeah, the Fremont factory will probably open up early June, right? And that's not good for Tesla's second quarter. It's not good for Tesla's small suppliers. It's not good for a lot of small businesses that need to open up, right? I think there really needs to be some more creativity, some more wisdom, some smarter measures, where you can have a balancing act. You balance and mitigating the spread of the virus while allowing businesses to open up with certain precautions and protocol. Anyways, yeah, stock price, man. I think it's tough to say, right? I mean, it's definitely not going to help Tesla's stock price the longer they can't open up their factory. Actually, this is a good point. Transcript error. First 40% should be 50%. So yeah, there's probably error in the transcript. Yeah, I expect greater visibility of long-term 40% from what is revealed during Battery Day. Yeah, I definitely agree. The Battery Day is going to lay out kind of like the next 10-year kind of expansion plans for Tesla. They will be aggressive, and yeah, people will get excited. But again, these are expectations or hopes that Tesla has. It might not come out to fruition as fast as people want. All right, Tariq says, thanks for the answer. Another question. When do you see Tesla going into the more high volume, low price car range to keep achieving the 40% cumulative average growth rate? Yeah, in my opinion, I think Tesla needs to get into the lower price cars to boost their growth. There's a limited market, right, for cars 40, 50, $60,000, right? You've got to get under like the $30,000 mark, I think, in my opinion. When Tesla does that, I think they do that as fast as they can, right? And it's going to require a scaling of their gigafactories. Each factory, they learn a lot more. The economies of scale Tesla's taking advantage of, right? All this stuff, they're just piling so much money into research and development. They're doing acquisitions. So in my opinion, yeah, this new Gen 4 car, as I call it, will come out of China. China will probably be the design center. They're working on it probably right now. They'll probably do it for the next 2 years, and maybe within 2 years, probably 2 years or so, maybe we'll get a reveal, and then the production in another year or so. And yeah, and then they can copy the design and produce it in other gigafactories around the world. All right, Mayan McCann says, how long will it take suppliers to get production back up to speed? Yeah, I think suppliers are very motivated, so I think it's going to be actually quite fast. I don't think it's going to be, probably within a week or so, I could see them get back. But the suppliers do need some advance notice. They need to say, hey, 10 days out, we need these parts or something. If Fremont or Alameda County is not giving Tesla any like visibility on the future, that's actually not cool for Tesla and their suppliers. Hi Dave, how do you think you can get more people to notice your coronavirus opening plan? Really think it would help? Yeah, I tried my best at that time to do what I could. I released a bunch of videos, like watch those videos around that time, March like 20th, 23rd, 22nd, and read that blog post and go ahead and, my wife actually did a bunch of stuff, and I actually sent this to a bunch of people too, but we emailed and we actually sent out some physical copies of that plan to like Dr. Fauci from the government, to some government leaders, to some other CEOs, and we're raising 2 small kids with limited time right now, and we weren't able to do like 1,000 or 1,000,000 letters. And I was trying to ask people on my channel to do their best to try to get the word out at that time, right? And if they know any leaders or people of influence, even their company CEOs, like just send them that letter, send them that blog post, send them the video link, right? It just needs to get out, right? And people need to believe in it, that there's a better way than just these blanket shutdowns, right? We need some smart measures, right? To mitigate the spread, but to open up the economy. Just look at Korea, man. Look at Taiwan. Look at Hong Kong. Like so many of these government leaders aren't even looking at these countries that are doing it right? That's the first place you got to look to, right? What are these countries that are doing it right doing? And then you could like figure out what you're doing if it's you can compare it, right? So, all right. Super Dave in California, awesome, man. I'm curious about demand for Model Y. I haven't heard much as well as Model 3 and S. Yeah, Tesla's Model Y is just, it's just guaranteed in a sense. It's a bigger car, right? Taller car. People love it. And their cost structure for Model Y is the same, meaning it costs the same for them to make a Model Y as it does for them to make a Model 3. So they can actually lower the price of the Model Y significantly, probably like 10%, and still get good margins, right? So it's a profit machine, Model Y, huge demand. It's just a matter of time for Tesla to ramp their production and to grow. Juan Manuel says, hi Dave, do you think Biden will outpace Tesla at some point? Yeah, I don't know, man. A lot of these like car companies, it's easy to have concepts, it's easy to have vision, it's easy to have like stuff, but it's hard to execute and ship. It's hard to get stuff out. Same thing in the software world. You can have a great concept prototype. It's hard to ship, and once you ship, you realize like whether your product is really like desirable or not, whether people really want it or not, right? So that's a big question. Like these car companies like Byton, like Rivian, man, they just gotta ship their cars, get something out there, get people to drive your cars, right? And then let's talk after you do some execution, right? All right, Husky Dog, what is the significance of having a 1,000,000-mile car? Different reasons. First, the cost of ownership goes down, right? If your car lasts so much longer than, let's say, the next best IC car, so you can use that as a selling point. Second of all, in the Robotaxi world, it's extremely important for your cars to last a long time, because these cars are going like maybe 100,000, 200,000 miles a year or something crazy. And so you need this high mileage car, a car that can go 1,000,000 miles in order for you to take advantage, right, of the Robotaxi network, right? And so that's kind of like the big thing. Tesla is doing a lot of stuff for this Robotaxi network. Like, think about it. My Model 3 I purchased, it's a December 2017 make Model 3, right? That's like how many years ago? That's like already 2.5 years ago, and yet it has the full self-driving, right, camera package, right? Well, actually, I need to upgrade to the hardware 3 computer. I already ordered it. But like all of that was prepared 2.5 years ago, and all of that is prepared for Robotaxi, which is not even going to be released probably this year or next year. So it's like 5 years in advance probably, right? They did it in 2017. They prepared for a future Robotaxi network release, like maybe 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Like, what car company is going to do that, right? This is just like mind-boggling that Tesla would actually prepare for the Robotaxi network so far in advance. And that's part of the thing. Like, I think people are underestimating the ambition of Tesla, right? And they're underestimating the execution that Tesla's doing. It's not easy to stick right, 8 cameras and a computer and all this stuff, and to plan for Robotaxi networks 5, 6 years in advance. It just is a lot of extra costs and engineering and everything, and most people don't appreciate like all that it does, all it takes to get in there. And there are very few companies like besides Tesla that can really pull this off. All right, Gerg says ride sharing is the future in cities. Yeah, it is, right, in a lot of ways. Another thing though is, on the flip side, you could say that, you know, with this whole virus situation, it's kind of like showing people in densely populated cities who rely on public transportation that, maybe public transportation isn't the greatest thing, right? And will ride sharing be the greatest thing? I don't know, right? Maybe if you can somehow do some sterile, right, hygienic ride sharing, but it could be best just to own your own car, you know, and have it take you to work and pick you up at the end and drive you around, right? So yeah, I wouldn't say ride sharing is the end of personal ownership like some people are saying. I think people are going to buy cars for a long time. All right. Yeah, here Peter L says, hi Dave, will Tesla factory in Nevada open on May 4th? I couldn't find any info on that. Yeah, so they were planning to open Reno and Fremont on May 4th. The problem is, if Fremont doesn't open up on May 4th, then Reno doesn't have like cars to make batteries for, right? So it's like kind of moot point for Reno to open up. I mean, they can open up and, you know, make their battery storage cells and their battery packs, but I think that's actually a small percent, probably less than 5 or 10% of the actual production there. So the bulk of their production probably is for cars, and without cars being built, you know, what's the point of opening up? I don't even know if they're going to open up on May 4th. I mean, they might. Yeah. Dogo Argentina says, does this tweet put a ceiling on the stock? Yeah, so if you're, you know, haven't seen this already, Elon's tweet, Tesla stock price is too high in my opinion. Does this tweet put a ceiling on the stock? It could be so in the short term, maybe next 6 months or so, even a year, who knows. It all depends also on Tesla's, you know, earnings and stuff. I think also Tesla has reached a point of maturity where everything is not just based upon the future. Like pre-Model 3, everything was based upon the future. But now we have Model 3 in full production or growing, and we have Model Y and ramp. Now the valuation and potential of Tesla is now half visible, right? You're able to see all of it. And because of that, I think we're less, as a company, reliant completely on Elon and Elon as CEO, even though he's important and he's a major factor in Tesla growing as fast as they can. But yeah, it could be possible that, you know, if Tesla really executes, if they open up fast, right, we can see the stock go past the ceiling that Elon set. But yeah, there is some psychological damage to, I think, the stock and the mood around the stock when your CEO says at 760 it's too high, right? I was just thinking, there's going to be a bunch of brokers who call their clients, right, and they say, hey, you got to sell Tesla, right? Elon Musk says it's too high, and these clients are like, oh, okay, I guess I don't know what to do, right? And so there's a lot of like stuff behind the scenes, I think that's happening, right? That yeah, a comment like that doesn't really help, I think, a lot of people. All right, Brada Boot says, hey Dave, I have a few friends who are Tesla car owners, older models, and one concern they have is cost of maintenance over time. Has Tesla looked at what how to lower the cost for owners? Yeah, so I had an early Model S, a 2013 Model S for like 4 years or so. Yeah, there was a little bit more maintenance with that. I mean, there wasn't really much maintenance, but the cost to do stuff, especially after post-warranty, which I never really got into, but yeah, that car is just a much more delicate, kind of expensive car. The Model 3, I've had it for what, since January 2018, so 2.5 years almost, right? I've had my car 2.5 years, like probably over 30,000 miles. It's basically been almost maintenance free. I'm very confident with my Model 3. I'm very confident with the Model 3 and Model Y. These cars are made to be like as low maintenance as possible. I think Tesla has a lot to do to help improve their service department and most of all communication with their customers. But that said, their cars, I mean, yeah, I think Tesla gets a bad rap for quality of the cars. Their quality of cars are fantastic. Yeah, I don't think you're going to find better cars. I mean, in terms of maintenance, they have the advantage of being electric too, right? So, yeah. All right, so let's go on to Elon Musk and HVAC. And he says he's extremely excited to build a kick-ass HVAC system. HVAC is basically like air conditioning, heating. And he wants to have filtration that filters out viruses, bacteria, pollen, fungi, and also neutralizes specific alkaline gases that is quiet and efficient. And they learned all this stuff in their cars. And he goes on to say that going into commercial HVAC will be very exciting. And then if you're condensing water and you have a water source, why not just heat that water and then you have a water heater as well? And so here Elon Musk is saying, I think this is beyond just idea right now. This is actually concrete plans. Like they actually have, in my opinion, concrete plans to get into HVAC world. They have, in my opinion, what this is showing is that Elon is saying they've already designed kind of a preliminary type of HVAC system and water heater, and they have like a team on it or some engineers on this. It might not be to prototype level yet, but he looks at the initial designs and he's very excited about it. He knows that this is going to be awesome. I think probably the big problem that Elon wants to solve is, hey, current ACs are so loud, you know, it's just like, what the heck? They're just like monsters, right? And they're not even like that great with filtration, like, you know, they don't have HEPA filters, etc. And even water heaters are all old school. And I think Tesla can really add a lot of value to the whole HVAC water heater system. Hey, what the heck? Put in water softening and put in other stuff, right? And then with power wall and solar roof, now you have the electric kind of thing going, and then you can get the water thing going with, you know, water heater, water filtration, right? Water softener, HVAC, right? Heating. And you've got a lot of the parts actually of a house just with that. And so it's interesting, like Tesla Home, right? Tesla Home with, you know, solar and HVAC, water heater, water filtration, right? Electric, all this stuff. Yeah, I'm bullish on Tesla Home. I think it's a long-term project, right? Initially, it's gonna be slower rollout than people would like, just like Tesla Solar Roof, but it has big potential. I think eventually maybe Tesla could make their own homes, own houses. Who knows? I mean, the ambition that Elon has is immense. Elon Musk on full self-driving progress. He says they're getting very good at complex intersections, and they need to get very good at complex turns. Actually, they need to get good at complex intersection turns, parking lots, office parks, special events, and sporting events. And it's tracking very well. And he says after that, they need to improve the reliability. So this is basically, they need to reduce the number of interventions, right, that are required. And they need to get them really lower, basically non-existent. And they need to show this, right, to regulators. And so after, right, it no longer needs supervision from the driver, they provide that data to the regulators, and then hopefully upon, depending on which jurisdiction, they get approval, and that's the whole process. And so, yeah, Elon is saying that they're working toward that. In terms of robotaxi timing, right? He says he's not the best like predictor, but he says, yeah, punctuality is not my strong suit, right? And this is an understatement. But he says he always comes through at the end. So he thinks that you could see robotaxis in operation with network fleet next year, not in all markets, but some. And yeah, I'm call me skeptical on next year. I'm extremely bullish on robotaxi. I think Tesla is by far in the lead for autonomous driving. I think they're completely on the right track. I think Andrej Karpathy is fantastic. He's doing the exact right approach for neural nets. Yeah, it's Tesla's game to lose. It's just that it just doesn't happen overnight, right? This stuff takes time. There are extremely difficult, like hard cases out there that Tesla needs to solve, especially with the life and death matter. So that said, I think we're going to see robotaxi, probably not next year in my opinion, but maybe hopefully in next following year or soon after. Elon Musk on Fremont opening, he says, we are a bit worried that we're not going to be able to resume production in the Bay Area, and that should be identified as a serious risk, right? And if you have caught Elon's tweets, like even the day before earnings, he was just ranting, talking about freedom and all this stuff. And it's just completely evident and clear to me that, Fremont just basically told them they can't open up. They won't even give Tesla a timeline. And Elon is extremely frustrated and agitated, right? And this is kind of the background for Elon's tweets even today as well. All right. Brada Boot says, thank you, Dave, for the answer. What is your prediction for Battery Day announcements? Any breakthrough with innovation with the Powerwall? Yeah, I think they're just going to blast people with like hours and hours of information, just like they did for Autonomy Day. But it's going to be probably even better than Autonomy Day in the sense that you're going to see kind of like gigafactories, right? How many gigafactories? So first of all, we're going to see like, just gigafactory, just, their whole rollout of how many they need. We're going to see on the cell level just some deep dive on their whole composition of cells and some breakthroughs on getting that million-mile cell. We're going to see also on the whole kind of building the cell process and building packs. They're going to outline the whole process of what they're doing, right? They're going to, in my opinion, announce that they're making new cells themselves, and then they're going to start to announce, I think, something that is already in production. Maybe it's going into the Model S and X or something, but yeah, something with batteries that maybe already they're starting to make. Yeah, and they're going to, yeah, it's going to be, they're going to pair this with the whole autonomy presentation in the sense that they're going to say, hey, we're building out 10 or 20 gigafactories in the next 10 years, and there's no end to this, right? Meaning they have unlimited demand, because especially with autonomous driving. So it's going to be fantastic. I hope, yeah, I wish they would, I wish they could do it in person, right? That's my hope. And I think maybe they're wanting to, but we'll see, if they're going to be able to do so. All right. Yeah, Elon Musk is on Fremont reopening. He says Tesla will weather the storm, but many small companies will not. And they have many suppliers that are having super hard times, especially the small ones. Yeah, and I think what Elon Musk is trying to emphasize here is that he wants an opening of the economy, not just because of Tesla, but because he thinks it's the right thing to do, because lots of small businesses, right, are going out of business and won't be able to reopen right after lockdowns end. And he just thinks that people can find ways to open their businesses in a safe way. And I think he's getting frustrated because people are getting like personal with him and attacking him, telling him it's just for a selfish, a personal gain that he wants it. And I think that was the reason for, the tweet today, which was Tesla stock price too high, in my opinion. Yeah, it was basically Elon trying to say that, hey, I'm not in it to make money off of getting out of this lockdown. I really think that, it's the right thing to do. All right. All right, here we have features now. Dave is a great Tesla historian. Great job. Yeah, I want to just go ahead and thank everyone for joining me on this live stream, asking all the questions. I think it's a great exercise to kind of just think a little bit deeper on some of these issues, right? And to say, okay, Tesla earnings, what does this mean in the bigger picture? I think overall we have a fantastic trajectory that Tesla's on. The most important is they're pushing their full self-driving. They're pushing their autonomous driving program. This is ultimately what is going to be the majority of their market share, market cap, right, in the future. And you also see them pushing, right, their new Model Y production, their Shanghai factory. Hopefully the Berlin factory goes on. So you see Tesla just pushing heavy and strong on all fronts. And this is what you want to see in a growth company, right? And you see demand very strong. And so on a lot of fronts, right, things are looking good for Tesla. The biggest risk factor, right, and Elon says it very clearly, right, is the Bay Area, is Alameda County, right? These shelter-in-place orders, right, that are just completely restricting businesses from opening. And that's the question that Tesla is facing right now. Tariq says, Dave, personal question. I think I saw you sitting in the audience at the Tesla Full Self-Driving Day. Yeah, that was definitely me. I like to try to go to as many Tesla events as possible. I like it because I get to ask questions, not just publicly, but I just get to meet different people like the Tesla executives. Or this at Autonomy Day, I was able to go into the Tesla Semi for like 15 minutes, and I was able to like talk to the engineers who are making the Tesla Semi and really just like sit in the seat, the Tesla Semi front seat, and just really try to get the vision, walk around, look at all the motors and the cars and stuff like that. It's just like, that's like priceless in a way. Another example is a few events in the past. I try to go to like the reveal events as well, and just talking to people like JB Straubel or even Jerome or other people, and trying to get pick their brains on just how they view Tesla. And sure, they're not going to reveal really anything material, but I remember like at the Powerwall 1 reveal event, I was talking to a Tesla exec, one of the core team, and I was like, hey, how do you see Tesla, right? Is Tesla like a car company? Is Tesla an energies company? Is Tesla whatever? And just to get their kind of perspective on how they see Tesla right now going forward. Like, what are the main challenges for Tesla, right? Like, stuff like this fascinates me. And I think that's that's what I want as an investor, right? I want to know the company, its core, in very clearly, right? I want to know its essence, right? So stuff like that is helpful, and I try to share with as many people as I can my insights as well. All right, guys, have a great weekend. I want to wish you guys the best, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye.